Hey, it's Madam Berry. Welcome back to my art studio. This is the first time I'm doing kind of a face talky video, so this is kind of weird, not gonna lie. In January, I launched my first Kickstarter for a zine full of Huevember illustrations, and I wanted to do a retrospective style video on what that process was like. I have to sneeze. Cool. Back in October, I saw a video by Dina Norland called What Comes After the Kickstarter. In it, she talked about her Kickstarter for her book Grey Legs, as well as some of her earlier Kickstarters. That video specifically inspired me to want to create my own, and as we were coming up to the coloring challenge of Huevember, I knew I would have a body of work ready to assemble. After talking a bit about it on social media and in streams, and gauging that there was in fact a bit of interest for this, I went about planning the Kickstarter. I settled on a $250 goal, enough to print the zines, purchase shipping supplies, and cover the costs of shipping as well as other fees, such as the ones that Kickstarter takes. Let me explain really quick why I chose Kickstarter. So ordering the zines and the packaging supplies on their own would have cost maybe $80 to $100. This is before any of my Kickstarter stretch goals were added. I could have dropped that $80 on the zines. That's not a ton of money, but I wouldn't have known whether or not that purchase was justified. I wouldn't have known how many people would have been interested in actually buying a zine if I would get any orders at all. Apart from just asking on social media, I wouldn't have had any guarantees. A large part of doing the Kickstarter was to be able to run a pre-order with the guarantee that I would only be on the hook for distributing the zines if enough people were interested in buying them. If you're not sure how much of your audience you can mobilize towards buying a product that you've made, Kickstarter is probably the safest way to test those waters. At this point, you're probably like, well, if it only cost $80 to get the zines, then why was the goal $250? At this point, since it was going through Kickstarter, I had to account for shipping costs because Kickstarter counts that towards the goal, and Kickstarter fees. If I had just bought the zines for $80 and then put them up on an online store, I wouldn't have had to worry about accounting for shipping as part of a goal. That would have just been paid by the customer. Even though the likelihood of 100% of backers buying a physical reward was low, I still had to account for that what-if scenario, meaning that I had to base the goal off of the minimum amount of shipped orders that it would have taken to break even. So how did I calculate my goal? I got quotes and prices from all of the printing services that I was using, as well as prices for shipping and packaging supplies. Then I calculated the total price of all of that, and since you generally want to set aside a percent for fees and taxes, I multiplied that total by 0.25, which is about 25%, and then set up a spreadsheet to automatically calculate my break-even point. Coffee is good. I also tentatively planned stretch goals and announced them in steps as we were getting closer to hitting each new goal. My biggest tip for stretch goals for your first Kickstarter is to keep your original goal in mind. Not the monetary goal, your actual product goal. And use your stretch goals to make that thing better. 2 of my stretch goals were to cover the added printing costs of adding extra pages to the zine. We went from like a 16-page zine to a 24-page zine, I think. Another one of my stretch goals was to make the print that comes with one of the higher tiers holographic. With your stretch goals, make sure they don't usurp the costs and time commitment of your original goal. For instance, if I had added enamel pins as a stretch goal, not only would they have been extremely expensive, they also wouldn't have fit into the shipping envelopes I chose for the zines, and they would have taken weeks to manufacture, and overall probably would have distracted me from my original goal of the zine. Now, this is only a particularly strong worry since this was my first Kickstarter, and I wanted to be sure above all else that I would be able to complete the orders that I got in. I did add a sticker stretch goal because stickers are easy, quick, and cheap enough to produce. So don't feel like you have to only add improvements to your original product as stretch goals. You can add small, easy things that are easy and quick to produce and don't take away from your original product. But if I do another Kickstarter in the future, I'll have a better understanding of the process and I might be more willing to add more elaborate elaborate stretch goals. If you're asking where I got all of these things printed, I have answers for you, and I will have links to all of them in the description. I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, these are just the services that I chose after spending some time evaluating what would be the most cost-effective and high quality for my situation. The zines were printed with Mixum, who specializes in booklet printing. The holographic prints were done with Cat Print, and the stickers were printed via Sticker App, which sounds like an app, but it's a company. As for shipping the zines, I used USPS First Class Package Shipping Service, which is the cheapest way to ship merchandise. USPS has a shipping calculator on their website that you can use to estimate the difference in shipping prices, both for domestic and international. I will say I did generally undercharge for shipping. I think in total I ate about $15 in shipping costs, including some international orders that cost more than I had anticipated, which isn't too bad. $15 is not a lot of money, but I only had about 20 orders. So just imagine how much that would have exponentially increased if I had undercharged for a project that had in the hundreds or thousands of orders. Definitely make sure you're calculating your shipping prices. If not exact, err on maybe charging a little bit more upfront for shipping. One thing to note is that you cannot buy USPS First Class shipping directly from their website, the USPS click and ship option. But if you have a PayPal account, you can buy shipping and print labels via their service. It's pretty easy. You also have the option of signing up with a stamps.com account, which I didn't try. This might be cheaper if you have a high volume of orders, as they send you a free postal scale, and I think you also get discounted postage rates. But it also requires a monthly subscription. So I opted to buy a shipping scale myself for about $15, and I used PayPal for free. The biggest thing that I learned from this whole process is that I vastly underestimated the costs of not only shipping, but also a couple of random other things, like the aforementioned shipping scale that I hadn't put in my spreadsheet originally. I still made enough off of the Kickstarter to cover all of these miscellaneous miscalculations, but I definitely should have double-checked if I needed any more supplies and made sure shipping was 100% correct. I packed all of the orders myself, but I would say if you have more than 50 or so backers that had physical rewards, you might want to enlist a friend to help and maybe like make it a pizza party or something. Bring your friend over, treat them to pizza, make it a thing. The final tip I have is to base your plans around a small product quantity. Unless you have like a massive audience, in which case I'm not sure why you're watching this video in particular. But if that's not the case, you might not want to plan a Kickstarter, for instance, around a full set of 10 enamel pins. Set your original goal at the minimum order of 1 pin, for instance, in this example. And if your project gains a lot of traction, add extra pins as stretch goals. It costs a lot of money to manufacture a full set of 10 enamel pins. It costs a lot of money to manufacture 1 pin, let alone 10. And a Kickstarter with a goal of, a few $100s is much more likely to succeed than a Kickstarter with a goal of a few $1,000s. Particularly when you're someone like me who has a smaller audience and is running her first project. Overall, I'm so glad that I did this Kickstarter and got these zines printed. If you're thinking of doing your own Kickstarter to fund a zine or print or a smaller merchandise run of whatever it is you're making, I wholly encourage you to go for it. As long as you plan well, literally the worst thing that can happen is that you don't meet your goal and you have to try again another day. In the description, I will put a link to a sample version of the spreadsheet that I used so that you can download it and plug your own numbers into it and see how much you would need to raise. It might not be as much as you think. Kind of as a note post-editing, it's nice for you as the seller to be able to have stock left over for anybody who missed the Kickstarter, or if you want to do anything in the future with your print or zine or whatever without having to get it reprinted. So if you can find a way to structure your Kickstarter so that it allows you to order a little bit extra in reserve of whatever you're making, I recommend it. For me, I got about 20 or so zine orders, and I ordered 50 zines, which was actually the minimum order. If I had gotten enough orders through my Kickstarter that it was getting close to that 50, I would have ordered extra zines the first time I printed them. That way, I have extras. If you missed out on the Kickstarter and you want one of these zines, I have a link to the online store where you can purchase one in the description. I also have other prints for sale, and I might be putting originals up at some point. If you have any questions at all, post them in the comments, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. If this video was helpful, give that subscribe button a little squish for me. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.
What is this, Muffin? Are the zines in? Did we get a zine? What is that? What is it?